And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lowdown Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Lakers Insider for Lakers Daily. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about JJ Redick, where we got another round of reporting that echoed my reporting verbatim. I do think it was just a coincidence. I said a few weeks ago that the Lakers were zeroing in on, or had zeroed in on JJ Redick, and then Shams wrote today for The Athletic that the Lakers were zeroing in on JJ Redick. So zeroed, whatever. The Lakers have circled JJ Redick's name. They have underlined JJ Redick's name. They have highlighted JJ Redick's name. They have starred JJ Redick's name. They have replaced the I in Redick with a heart. All of those things. The Lakers are getting ready, it would appear, to hire JJ Redick as their next head coach. So I'm going to be talking about the potential decision, the reporting from today, the entire process, and my thoughts about it. All of that stuff right here in a second. So we start with JJ Redick, or I guess we start with Shams's report for The Athletic on JJ Redick. Quote, the Los Angeles Lakers are zeroing in on JJ Redick as a front runner to be the franchise's next head coach. League and media industry sources tell The Athletic. I should probably have pulled up mine because my lead was almost exactly the same thing. No final decision has been made yet, and the Lakers still have steps remaining in their head coaching search process, league sources said, but the indications are strong that Redick is their leading choice at this stage. Dan Woike of the LA Times, friend of the show, Dan Woike, wrote the following. With the NBA Finals set to begin Thursday in Boston, the Lakers still don't have a head coach, and according to people with direct knowledge of the source who were not authorized to speak publicly, are in no rush to end the process. While the internal messaging remains that the process is ongoing and any finality is premature, speculation continues to be focused on JJ Redick and the strong likelihood he ends up as the team's next head coach. People familiar with the search said Redick, his representatives, and the Lakers have not had conversations about contract details. On Tuesday, The Athletic reported the Lakers are zeroing in on JJ Redick as a frontrunner for their coaching vacancy. This comes, again, weeks after my report that the Lakers had zeroed in on JJ Redick a while ago. And honestly, like I guess I'll offer my opinion on the back half of the show. But again, this kind of gets back to the whole reason I spoke to Dan at the beginning or the end of last week. And I hope you guys checked out that episode with Dan and me as we discussed all of this, where leading up to that conversation, you had Chris Haynes saying that he would be shocked if it was anybody other than Redick. You had the stuff that I had said to this point. And then you had Adrian Wojnarowski on the other end of the spectrum saying that the Lakers are taking their time. They haven't made a decision, that this is going to take weeks, and that Tyronn Lue never really figured into any of it. Dan Woike, again, continued with, he's, I think, a little closer to Adrian Wojnarowski in terms of ends of the spectrum here, right? And, all of this is to say that, the secret is out, but the Lakers want it to be on their terms. I remember there was a football player. Gosh, who was it? It was a wide receiver. Was it Percy Harvin? I forget which football player it was. But it might have been Antonio. No, I don't think it was Antonio Brown. But it was a wide receiver. It was a pretty good wide receiver, but they wanted to basically report on their own contract. And before they were able to do that, either it was Schefter or one of those newsbreakers on the NFL side of things broke the news on that contract that wide receiver quote tweets Schefter, whoever it was, and does the whole these reporters will say anything nowadays, had a lot of cap emojis, did a lot of fake news kind of stuff, right? And got really, really angry at whoever the newsbreaker was basically doing their job. And about 2 or 3 hours later, you got the video from that wide receiver's. Gosh, I really wish I remembered who this wide receiver was. This legitimately happened. But like only a couple hours later, felt like this wide receiver, after wringing their hands, getting all kinds of angry at the newsbreaker for doing their job, this wide receiver releases a video announcing the very news that he was angry at the newsbreaker for announcing. And the whole point there was that one, the wide receiver, the teams, everybody involved there wanted to handle the narrative and handle the story and on their own terms. Two, the wide receiver wanted all of the engagements on their own personal account. They did not want any of that engagement going to the newsbreaker's account. And then, three, it was a nice, quick little look into how all of this kind of how this tends to play out, where it is our job. Now that I am a quote unquote insider, it is our job to find this news, and it is the central party's jobs to keep us from this news. And what is, I think, going on right now is the Lakers and Redick and ESPN and the NBA trying to keep this news kind of tempered down a little bit. And that was a Freudian slip. And they're trying to ensure that this news, when it comes out, is completely on the Lakers' terms, on JJ Redick's terms, and on the NBA's terms. The NBA is preparing for a series between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. They want all of the attention on that, on the basketball and on the matchup there. We have seen what it looks like when the attention goes too far away from the sport, as we are watching with the nonsense that is going on with Caitlin Clark and everybody's apparent disability, to discuss that in a even somewhat logical manner. You have all of this going on, and while all of that is going on, you have the secret very much out that the Lakers are getting ready to hire JJ Redick, that JJ Redick is preparing for that position, and everybody else around the league is preparing for those two things to take place. Everybody else around the league being other teams. James Borrego, right, is weighing his options. Does he want to return to New Orleans? Does he want to go to the Lakers to be JJ Redick's associate head coach? Does he want to go to Cleveland and keep his name in the hat there, where he is a finalist with Kenny Atkinson for that position? You have all of this going on, and everybody trying to kind of maintain their handle on the narrative and on lines. And the reality of the situation is this has been a very poorly kept secret that is just continues to slip through the cracks. As far as my opinion on it, I do want to talk about the process here, because from my standpoint, knowing what I know, the Lakers headed into this process hoping that it would be JJ Redick. They were looking for the specific things from JJ Redick that they knew that Redick would be very good at. Some would argue that the Lakers, some I've spoken to, have said that the Lakers kind of ignored the types of candidates that would really challenge JJ Redick, and spoken highly of the types of candidates that make Redick look better by comparison. like all of this process here, and I have a piece coming out for Lakers Daily, I would imagine over the course of the next few days, whenever this thing gets announced, and whether it's at the beginning of the finals, whether it's after the finals, whether it's midway through the finals, whatever, like we know what the end point here is going to be. It's just a matter of when versus if, as I said the other day. But uh, what a lot of people are kind of saying about this process is, yet again, it just it doesn't it nobody is all that impressed with the process that the Lakers have put together here. Now, all of that is from the outside looking in, and all of that is a lot of people who have not been very impressed by the Lakers in general. So I'll say that on the front end here, but also like there's a lot of viable and fair points being made. The Lakers are the most, other than like Phoenix, they are the most win now team in the NBA. You have a LeBron James who's going to be entering his age 40 season. He's going to be 40 years old while he is playing basketball in the NBA next season. And the Lakers are hoping that he maintains an elite level of play in that aged 40 season. And also, Anthony Davis will be entering year 13. The Lakers are clearly have a couple steps to still take to be in that title picture. This is going to be a really difficult job, whoever takes it. And one would have thought that the Lakers may have prioritized experienced over all else, given how things went with Darvin Ham, another rookie head coach. But no, Mike Budenholzer was like, he was certainly taken somewhat seriously, but the Lakers also didn't exactly shed a tear when he went to Phoenix. And some of that has to do with the fact that Darvin Ham came from Mike Budenholzer's tree. Some of that has to do with how quickly Phoenix moved on Budenholzer, but also like it needs to be pointed out that I think at the very onset, once they fired Darvin Ham, and once Rob Pelinka realized how far his neck was out there in hiring Darvin Ham and in hiring Frank Vogel, for that matter, that he realized, oof, man, I am out here on this limb by myself. This is not comfortable. And essentially what it has felt like is like, all right, how can I at least kind of make it appear like this is somebody else's decision, so that if this next hire doesn't go very well, that other person could take the hit for how this plays out. And I've already seen it. Like people who I know are smart people who analyze the NBA for a living are out here saying, "Oh man, LeBron's forcing the Lakers to hire his podcast co-host, and oh, look at LeBron. He's forcing the Lakers to hire to draft his son, and look at LeBron do all these things." And it's like, I think the Lakers understand how people are kind of wired in situations like this. And they know that, like, all right, if we hire this person, we could kind of quiet the noise and the heat, temper down that heat, cool down my own seat for, with those who have maybe grown a little frustrated with the amount of mediocrity I have overseen. This is Rob Pelinka, I guess, saying this. And maybe Redick makes some sense. Like, in what other world? And look, I think there's a chance that Redick works out. There's a chance that maybe, I think Redick is a very bright guy. I am not going to say that this guy is definitely going to fail. History is not on his side, though. And in what other world would a LeBron James team that is going to be making another series of moves to compete this season for a championship, in what other world would they hire a rookie head coach with zero other NBA coaching experience? Not one I can think of, right? So, like, it's all really weird the way that this process has played out. And I've tried to, like, while I have been reporting on it, I have just focused on the reporting. I've just focused on the information, and I have been telling you guys for a long time now that this is going to play out the way that it looks like it is going to play out. So those of you who keep on saying like Anthony never gets anything right, can I stop getting that in my mentions, please? One time? Can we get like one time? Could you guys just shut up for a second? But no, like I'm going to get back to some of the other stuff that's been going on here, and some of what else might be going on, and also like an important disclaimer on the Lakers' own process in years past. But I do want to say that like the process that got us here, it'd be one thing if the Lakers started out this process and like Atkinson was lapping the crowd, or they had taken Budenholzer more seriously, or in talking to, like, at no point did we get any kind of detail on, man, Mike Inori really blew him away, really impressed him. David Adelman really impressed him. The only thing that we got was like James Borrego spent like 6 months with Anthony Davis. That was it. And like Dan Woike did say that the Lakers were very impressed by James Borrego. And I have also heard that Borrego is a very impressive individual. But like, he's James Borrego. And I guess, and I guess that, we said the same things about Frank Vogel, but I don't know. All of this has been, it's felt like retrofitting. Like it's felt like actually one of my favorite conversations ever was with Pete a few years ago, back when we were still doing Locked On. And we talked about why those like modern offenses tend to struggle in the NBA playoffs, or they tended to struggle in the NBA playoffs back when they did. And one of the points that Pete made that I thought was really well made was you can't retrofit efficiency in a sport that is as amoebic as basketball is, as artistic. Basketball is jazz. It's not classical music. It's not chamber music. It's this living, breathing thing. And when you basically try to say, all right, we are going to eliminate this shot from our shot diet, and we are only going to take these shots over here, and not take into account what defenses are going to be trying to do to us over the course of a 7-game series, those offenses are going to struggle because they don't have another pitch to throw there. And what we have seen over the years is that those offenses, those modern offenses, have further modernized, and we have further figured out that, okay, it does make sense to have somebody on your roster, or a couple people on your roster, capable of knocking down those mid-range jumpers when your sets break down. And the best example of that, right, is like what made the Warriors so brutal to defend is that like you were terrified of Steph Curry 40 feet from the basket. You were terrified of Klay Thompson 40 feet from the basket. And then on top of all of that, like you also had the cutters and the finishers at the basket, the Andre Iguodalas of the world, who would the Sean Livingstons, I guess, too, who would also feast at the basket. But when everything broke down and your defense finally did its job, the ball would rotate over to Kevin Durant, and you had one of the best, maybe the best mid-range jump shooter in the history of the sport, taking a defender one-on-one and getting a shot that was unblockable at the time. And that offense was just mathematically impossible to stop. It was the perfect offense for its time. And that's like what we figured out, was that like, okay, you can't, like, Houston went too far in that direction of it is only dunks and it is only corner 3-pointers and it is only 3-pointers. And there is nothing in that mid-range that we're going to try to deal with. And defenses figured out like, well, I guess if they're going to take that shot, they probably haven't practiced it all year. Let's give them that shot. Let's see how it goes. And Houston winds up missing whatever it was, 27 straight 3-pointers in an elimination game or whatever game it was, and their season was over. And And I think here with what we're watching with JJ Redick and what we've watched in this process here is that the Lakers have basically tried to retrofit the narrative to make it look like Redick is the right hire, where he might be. Redick might be the right hire. I do like the fact that LeBron James is going to have more buy-in with Redick than he had originally, even with Frank Vogel and he ever had with Darvin Ham. I like that aspect of it. I do think that Redick is a great communicator. He's a very detail-oriented person. He's a very bright basketball mind. All of those things can be true too. But when you have an entire process that seems devoted to arriving at this individual, that's where you get yourself into trouble. And that's where I'm concerned the Lakers got themselves into trouble. Whew. Everybody keep up there? We good? I haven't even, I got so far into my rant there. I have 55 comments. We have 900 people watching live here. I promise at the end of the show, I'm going to go in and answer some of your guys's or all of your guys's super comments and whatever other comments that I see come up along the way. I also wanted to talk really quickly about like without I don't want to get myself into trouble here judging reporters doing their jobs. Because for one thing, given that I am like dipping my, or I guess at this point I'm like knee deep into these waters. So I'm like, I'm not gonna go so far as to like say I'm dipping my toe in anymore. Like I have now moved past dipping my toe in. I am knee deep, maybe even waist deep into the water. Like everybody who has walked into the ocean on the West Coast where the water is like 70 degrees or so, there's a point, especially on men, that once you cross, you are now in. But like crossing that point where the boys go into the water and you're like that's basically where I'm in. Where like I'm like the boys have been dunked and I am now boys dunked into reporting. And knowing what I know about reporting and knowing how much I know goes into it, I really do have like a newfound respect for the people who do this and do it well, especially. And the people that I'm talking about here, Shams, Dan, Jovan, like the people who are doing this and relaying that information to you, Woj, like there's a lot going on there that I am not going to judge because I am brand new to this and I find all of this very intriguing. But like it does. Oh, Haynes also, right, who I mentioned earlier, like with this information and with this broad a spectrum on it, that even the people who are saying like, well, the Lakers are taking their time, even those people are saying Redick is still probably the guy. It really kind of like what happens a lot of times in movies and in entertainment is you'll have information, you'll have trailers come out, you'll have like when I was still working at Vox, we were all members of WJE East, which meant that we could technically we were considered potential voters during award season. So I would get, and everybody who works at Vox for a while there, I don't know if it's still the case, but we would all get screeners for award season. And it was, for your consideration, check this out, blah, blah, blah. And it would all be, we would all be told like, all right, you weren't allowed to talk about this till so-and-so, and you weren't allowed to talk about this until so-and-so. And all of that information, we were just kind of said like, yeah, because what the people who are talking to the people who are on the other end of the spectrum, right? I have been very loud in saying this is going to be JJ Redick. And the people on the other end of the spectrum who are saying that the Lakers are really, really taking their time and that it might not be JJ Redick, the Woj, and I guess Woike kind of falls into that category too. It's not that the people that they are talking to are lying to them, because if what they were being told was so different from what we have been told to this point, or what we have reported to this point, those people are going to be like, wait, why is that so different from what they're saying? Like, but it's all conversations that are taking place here. And so like the fact that even the people who were saying, yeah, the Lakers are really, really taking their time here, are also saying that it's probably still Redick, or that Redick is still the heavy favorite to do this. It still kind of indicates to me that, the Lakers, or some of the people that are doing some of this talking are saying, just chill. Can you just chill? Can we just? And then, another part of this too, like I've been hearing over the course of the last week or so, ESPN is playing a very active role in this, where they have the NBA finals coming up. They didn't have enough time when all of these discussions started to go out and find a replacement for JJ Redick. They're basically, they have their 2 cents in this too. And they're going to say like, all right, eventually we're going to let JJ out of his contract and he'll be able to go coach. But for right now, his focus has to be the finals, or it has to at least appear to be the finals. And what it seems like to me, and this is speculation on my point, so on my part. So if this gets aggregated, I'm going to be pissed, because this is just speculation. It seems to me like the Lakers and Redick have at least agreed to come back to the table and figure out terms later, but both sides kind of understand that Redick is the guy. And maybe those talks break down. Like, the other part that needs to be pointed out here is that the talks between the Lakers and Lou got a lot further than I'm told they are right now between the Lakers and Redick. And those talks broke down, and eventually the Lakers arrived at Frank Vogel. So it could be that James Borrego could play the Frank Vogel role. Shit, Frank Vogel could play the Frank Vogel role. He's unemployed, and the Suns have already hired another head coach. So it's not like they can tell Frank, you aren't allowed to coach the Lakers. It would be hilarious. It would be the funniest outcome to all of this. But technically speaking, the Lakers and JJ Redick could have those talks break down. James Borrego could take the job. If he doesn't get it with Cleveland, Frank Vogel could take the job. Sam Cassell could take the job. And we could see how that plays out. But as it stands right now, it really, really feels like the Lakers and JJ have kind of like winked and said, hey, once ESPN allows you to come back to the negotiating table, or once ESPN allows you to come back and talk to us about the direction that you're interested in taking the roster, or the direction that you're interested in taking the coaching staff, all of those things, all right, we'll resume those talks. But for right now, go ahead, focus on the finals, knock those out of the park, really impress people, so that when we make the announcement, if we make the announcement that you are our next head coach, our fans are happy, given what they just heard from you in the NBA finals. And please sound super duper smart, because that's the whole reason we're hiring you. That's how I see this playing out. Whether it's over the next 48 hours, the finals finally do kick off on Thursday. Maybe it's at the beginning of game 1. ESPN tells Woj, an ESPN employee, hey, you can leak this now. You can report it. We'll cover it during the A block of the pregame show. We'll pat JJ on the back. We'll tell him, hey, congratulations on getting the job with the Los Angeles Lakers and coaching LeBron James and all of those things. Also, we have the finals to call, and they move on that way. But as it stands right now, I and everybody else I have spoken to, and everybody else you have heard talk about this story, would be pretty freaking shocked if it was anybody else other than JJ Redick. And again, we could talk about process. We'll have an entire summer to talk about process. But as it stands right now, JJ Redick seems like he's going to be the next coach of the Lakers, and we'll see what the final information flow eventually looks like. I should have put this on the Today on the Show graphic here. My apologies. But you had LeBron James have an interesting quote on that podcast that he does with JJ Redick, in which he said, quote, "I'm so bleeping mad that I am not his running mate anymore. He's the most gifted player the NBA has ever seen." That is LeBron James talking about Kyrie Irving. For one thing, most gifted player that the NBA has ever seen. If we're talking about physical gifts, you gotta talk about Will Chamberlain. You gotta talk about Kyrie, or you gotta talk about Kareem. The guy saying that LeBron was pretty physically gifted. I don't know if he meant like skilled. I guess Kyrie would have a, hey, like with his ability on the ball, his handle is just about as clean as you're ever going to see. And then his finishing package, he can shoot, he can pass, he can do all those things. Offensively, he is one of the most skilled players that you're ever going to see. Defensively, he's finally trying on that end again. And I think that's a big part of why Dallas has had such a good defense, is they don't have any just glaring weaknesses because Kyrie and Luka have been working their ass off on that end of the floor. But like, it is that time of year again. It does feel like every May we get to this point, or every early June we get to this point, or basically it's like once or twice a year, LeBron talks about Kyrie Irving in a way that makes Lakers fans really uncomfortable. This time around, though, it does just feel like respect. It does just feel like an older brother talking about little bro growing up and marveling at the things that Kyrie is doing, because there is no feasible path that the Lakers could take to acquiring Kyrie this year. There just isn't. One, the Mavericks just got to the finals. They aren't going to be trading the second reason that they got there, the number 2 reason that they got there. So that Nico Harrison just signed a contract or extension with the Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie isn't going anywhere. So like, I saw this, and normally I would just kind of like roll my eyes, and I did make a snarky tweet when I saw it or whatever. But this time I did legitimately just kind of just find this cool. Like, I think it's a or the or what, like whether you have LeBron top 3 or whatever as basketball players ever, marveling at the things that Kyrie Irving is capable of doing on a basketball court. I found it really cool. And I find it really cool. Like, what I don't find very cool is the lengths to which people are like trying to go to make it seem as if like all of that stuff that happened a couple years didn't happen and that Kyrie didn't grow. But, Kyrie just gave a quote the other day that said, like, no, I have grown. I have matured as a human being. I have come out on the back end of that process that I put myself through, and I've learned from it, and I am a better person for it. I think that's really cool. That's the whole point. That's all any of us were ever hoping for while he was going through that. And he did. And now the Mavericks get the benefit of it. I wasn't sure that the Lakers would benefit from it in the same way. And in hindsight, I would like that column back because I was wrong. And we'll see what the finals look like. We'll see what his performance looks like here. But for those who have said, like, gosh, LeBron does it again with Kyrie Irving, and here he goes again. Like, no, I legitimately just think, hilariously, he was saying this to his potential and likely, future head coach. But it does really just feel like LeBron wants it known that he is very proud of what Kyrie Irving has done on a basketball court and has done off of the basketball court in order to allow himself this opportunity. And look, for all Lakers fans out there who have their priorities right, here's hoping that Kyrie makes good on that opportunity and sends the Celtics home still stuck at championship number 17. I hope. Please. Please. All right, let's dive on into the super comments. We have 4 of them, which means I get to play this thing. Fuck Boston! And one more time because Boston is in the finals. Fuck Boston! Brandon Omeng writes, getting DeJounte Murray, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Dre. I guess this is Drummond. I don't know. Work out a sign and trade with the Nets for D'Lo plus a first to get Dorian Finney-Smith. Trade Rui, Gabe Vincent, and then the remaining first for DeJounte Murray. Okay, yeah. And then sign Drummond to a little more than the vet min. I guess you would use some of your exception money to do that. I'm somewhat with it. I could see it. I think one first for Dorian Finney-Smith makes sense. Rui and Vincent for DeJounte Murray also makes sense. Murray and Reeves is a little small for your backcourt, but still I think better and fits better than D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves did last year. Dorian Finney-Smith is more consistent on both ends than or on like in aggregate than Rui. So I could see what you're going for there. Yeah, I'm with it. I'm mostly with it. I think if that was the offseason that the Lakers just had or would have, I would I'd like to see what their the rest of their exception money goes to and all of that stuff. But in terms of trades and asset management, yeah, I think that'd be fine. I don't think the Nets, it's a chance that the Nets would take the Lakers up on that part of the offer or that part of the offseason. The DeJounte Murray one is tough because the Hawks so clearly wanted Reeves. But yeah, I could maybe see it. Brandon, that's one of the better offseason kind of pictures that I've seen to this point. Rye Guy, Shams thinks he's slick breaking news without breaking news. LOL. He only dropped that to get ahead of Woj/ESPN next week. He can refer back to today. Yeah, I mean, like, it kind of feels like a version of what they did coming off of the season with Darvin, where everybody knew with Darvin that he was going to be fired. We all waited a week for it. Like at one point, Darvin was waiting for it. But excuse me. Yeah, I as far as like what Shams and what the Athletic is doing, I'm not trying to get myself into trouble talking about a competitor there or shoot, even a potential like employer. So I'm not trying to really kind of light them on fire here, but it does feel like a version of those like immediate postseason write-ups where all of the coaches that had those write-ups written about them all wound up fired. And in this case, it does feel like getting out ahead of it. Shoot, I wrote one that used the exact same verbiage. I also wanted to get out ahead of it because like when I have enough information and when I have enough confirmation to be able to say that it looks like this is heading in that direction, I'm going to tell you guys, as I have told you basically since Darvin Ham was fired and since I wrote that up for Lakers Daily, that it has felt like JJ Redick's job to lose. And, that's essentially what Shams wrote today for The Athletic. Brandon Noeming writes, DeJounte Murray, AR, DFS, Bron, AD, Max, TP, Vando, Wood, Dre, thoughts. I guess that would be your kind of rotation there. Was JHS in there? No, JHS wasn't mentioned in Brandon's original trade, so I guess JHS would have to be in there somewhere as well. It's a good roster, I think. Lacking in shooting. You need DeJounte Murray to be as good as he was as a shooter this year again, which, we have seen how it looks for the Lakers when they basically bank on the outlier year for a shooter. That makes me a little concerned. Dorian Finney-Smith, like I would wonder how much more it would take to basically offer that same package for Kuz that you're trading for Dorian Finney-Smith, and offer that little extra offense there between the two of them. But Dorian Finney-Smith is, I think, a better defender. So maybe that is the advantage that you're looking for there. Overall, though, I would probably say, like, if that was the roster going into next season and JJ Redick was even like a mediocre head coach, you're looking at like my expectation going into next year would be vying for home court in the first round of the playoffs, and seeing what that looks like. But overall, Brandon, again, that's one of the better offseason kind of hopefuls that I've seen to this point. Johnny Jenkins writes, percentage Chris Paul becomes a Laker. Oof, that is a fun one. Percentage? I would say it's like a 35 to 45% chance that Paul is a Laker next year, meaning it's more likely that Chris Paul is not a Laker next season, but it's still relatively likely. You know that LeBron would like to have Chris Paul there. I think it would be wise for the Lakers to bring Chris Paul in with JJ Redick as the head coach, get you that extra kind of oomph in the locker room. Chris Paul played with JJ, and I think that I started watching Clipped the other night, the Clippers show, which, by the way, like, the showrunners there appeared to have like wagered on none of us knowing what any of the central figures look like, because nobody looks anything like any of the central characters. I guess B. Stiviano, the actress who plays her, or the actor who plays her, looks like V somewhat, but for the most part, like the Blake Griffin one is like uproariously funny. Like, it is legitimately funny to see Blake Griffin in that role. The actor portraying Blake Griffin there, he's a lot tanner. His hair is for some reason a lot redder. Not nearly as big, not nearly as imposing. Basically, everybody on that show is being made to look tall, but nobody actually is like all that tall. You have JJ Redick's character basically be almost exactly the same height as Chris Paul's character there, which is not true. Like, Chris Paul's about like 5'10", 5'11" or so. He's like my height. And so, like, it's just the show. I know what they're trying to do there. It feels a lot cheaper than the Showtime show, but still, or the Winning Time, I guess, on HBO. But still, it's entertaining to this point, I guess. The Doc Rivers thing is funny because you can really clearly see with the accent that Lawrence Fishburne uses when certain scenes were shot, where I think Lawrence Fishburne entered the filming process really gung-ho and said, like, screw it, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do Doc's voice for the whole thing, where we all know what Doc sounds like. He sounds like he swallowed a boulder. He's like, I'm not even, damn it. That's what I get for trying it. But Doc sounds like those coughs. Doc sounds like he swallowed a cough machine. And Lawrence Fishburne, at the beginning of filming, really appeared to be trying that. And then every so often, he just goes away from it. And so you could kind of chart scene by scene. Oh, okay, so this was filmed really early in the process. Oop, okay, this was a lot later in the process. He ditched those efforts. So overall, it's a really funny show. I think it'll be more for like unintentional comedy. I think it'll probably be best used as like a binge view Like I'm flying home in July, so maybe I'll just like, kind of let them all kind of gather together and watch them all on my way to well, I'll have kids, so I'll see how that goes on the flight, but that's probably how I'm going to treat the show. There's too much good stuff. Like The Acolyte just aired tonight. I'm going to try to finish this here and watch The Acolyte tonight uh to get to it. Anyway, percentage that Chris Paul becomes a Laker. I think it's a decent chance. I do think that, like, yeah, I it would be a really funny kind of final chapter given the basketball reasons thing, and again, given his friendship with LeBron, his companionship, or the fact that he played with uh JJ back in the day. We know he loves LA. He would love to be back in LA. There were rumors that he would be a Clipper again. He would welcome becoming a Clipper again, to be able to be in LA. Part of the reason he went to Phoenix was because that was, he wanted to be closer to home, and Phoenix is one of the closer markets to LA that he could possibly be in, and in all of those things. If you do go out and get Chris Paul, there's no need for Jalen Hood-Schifino to be on the roster. There's much less need for Gabe Vincent to be on the roster, unless you're concerned about Chris Paul's injury stuff, which is a fair concern. But I don't know if Chris Paul would sign up to be your third guard, or I guess your fourth guard, potentially behind Gabe Vincent. I don't want Chris Paul starting on the Lakers next year. I would prefer he kind of manages the second unit. But yeah, I would say 35 to 45% chance that Chris Paul is a Laker again next year. But we have to see what his contract situation looks like. We have to see what the trade situation looks like, and all of that, where Golden State has some decisions to make here. And look, we're finally nearing that point. We just have 4 to 7 games here to get through, and then the Lakers remain, or return to that kind of relevance again. All right, I'm going to go really, really quickly to see if I missed any if I missed any comments from earlier. Yeah, I'm really, really kind of curious how people wind up feeling about Blue Lives Matter. Ham, that is Blue Lies, not Blue Lives, but Blue Lives Matter. Has Ham been hired yet? Nope. It doesn't appear like Ham is probably going to coach this year. Full quid. By the way, best Lakers podcast there is. Anthony, well done. Best thing is your honesty, no sugarcoating the ineptness of the Lakers FO. I appreciate it, man. I really, really do. The amount of support, it is 1,300 people watching right now. A reminder, please do hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcasts, preferably here, either on Odyssey in pod form or on YouTube. And that is at youtube.com/@LakersLounge. Yeah, a lot of people kind of going back and forth about Rondo being a candidate. Anthony talked Laurie. I talked about Laurie in yesterday's episode. I just don't think it makes sense for the Lakers to spend everything that they would have to spend on Laurie, given their other needs across the roster. He would certainly be an upgrade. He would certainly be an addition to the roster, but that role requires less resources devoted to it than it would take to get Lauri Markkanen, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. All right. I think that is, I'm going to go ahead and say that is going to do it. So until the next time you guys hear from us, again, rate, review, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends that you love the show. Tell your enemies that you hate it. And let's keep this thing growing. We do, now that my voice is kind of starting to feel like it's back to where I want it to be, I'm going to start recording the player reviews that will be airing sporadically on kind of slower news days. So until the next time you guys hear from us, where I think tomorrow the plan is to hopefully talk to Aaron. Thursday, people were asking for me to talk to Sabrina. I am going to talk to Sabrina on Thursday, and then that will probably carry us through the end of the week, breaking news notwithstanding. So until then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin saying have a great rest of your night, make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow.